Hey people, welcome to the Run Testers, and in this video we've got a newcomer from On. We have got the On Cloudsurfer 2. This is another daily trainer that drops in alongside the On Cloudmonster 2 and the Cloudeclipse with a lower stack than those two. Tweaked CloudTec Phase midsole. We enjoyed past generations of the On Cloudsurfer. We're interested to see if this one builds on that. We've put it to the requisite test miles and we're here to give you our verdict. Let's get into it in our On Cloudsurfer 2 review. When it comes to stack height, the On Cloudsurfer 2 packs 32 mils in the heel, 23 mils in the forefoot for a 9 mil drop. It weighs in at 9.1 ounces or 258 grams in a UK men's 8.5 test shoe. On price, it's £150 or $160. Let's take a closer look at the On Cloudsurfer 2 then, starting with the midsole, and you've got the now familiar sort of CloudTec Phase elements here that use On's Helium foam. Those are similar to what you'll find in the On Cloudeclipse or the On Cloudmonster 2, but you've got a lower stack here, and those elements have been tweaked, or at least the midsole foam has been tweaked to give the Cloudmonster 2 a smooth ride that's perhaps a little firmer than previous generations. There's a pronounced rocker. Interestingly, there's no speedboard plate in this shoe. That's been left out to soften the ride. Up top, you've got new engineered mesh uppers that I would say are pretty classic On. They're quite thick, but they're very soft, very premium feeling. And the tongues are plushly padded. You've got nicely padded heel collars. Those tongues aren't gusseted, by the way. They are freestanding. The laces are pretty standard and offer a decent length as well. You flip them over and there's a generous covering of outsole rubber here for grip and durability. That rubber is actually quite thick. It's kind of separated into pads on all the key impact zones and lets the sole flex a bit. I think interestingly, you've got some sort of quite substantial pads on the heels here, which can be a problem with past On shoes. Quick word on fit then, and I ran in a UK 8.5, which is the size I'd usually run in with an On shoe, and I think there's great step-in comfort here. On does that really well, and the Cloudsurfer 2 is no different. Everything feels wrapped, held without being restricted. I found it easy to get this shoe locked in. The heels hold well, nicely padded. They sort of hold the heel without any sort of unwanted pressure. There's just about enough room in the toe box as well, along with a bit of flex from these mesh uppers. I would describe this as a good disappearing fit that lets you get on with business, and I would recommend going true to size.
So I found that the Cloudsurfer 2 fit me well in my normal running shoe size. I've got a UK 9 here, with On that's a US 9.5. I think it's a fairly dialed in fit, quite a tight fit. I'm generally a little bit small for my size, so it has worked well for me. I think if you are big for your size, then you might maybe look at going half size up to get a bit more room around the toes, because it is, like I say, a fairly close fit, but I enjoyed it. I had no problems of it feeling uncomfortable or too tight on longer runs. And it's really comfortable around the back of the shoe. You've got loads of padding here, big thick tongue, and the upper in general I think is a really good one. Very comfortable, breathable enough for me as well. Maybe in hotter countries, I've been running in the UK winter, you might get a bit of heat from this big padded tongue and heel, but I had no problems with it, and all round the fit was really good for me, sticking with my normal size.
In testing, I've run around 25 miles in the On Cloudsurfer 2. I've mixed easy miles with some progression runs, some shorter runs, and some up to 90 minutes on feet. All of that has been on the road. I was desperately trying not to get these lovely white shoes muddy by running along the wet river, which is something I normally do. Now, I didn't get to run in the latest iteration of the Cloudsurfer, so I can't speak to the changes between the generations. But I was a fan of the Cloudsurfer 7 a few years back. I also like the Cloudeclipse and the Cloudmonster 2 for that kind of rockered rolling ride that you get. And I enjoyed that here too. Though they're not as soft as I remembered the Cloudsurfer 7. Everything I think is a bit more direct, but that suits my style. I like a firmness and a snappiness and a stiffness in my shoes with that rock ring. And when it combines with a rocker to create that kind of easy clip along, smooth transitions with good control, that's something that I really look for in shoes. And there's something I also enjoy about shoes that soften the road but don't remove it altogether, so you can still feel the ground when you're doing some of the work. And for me, the Cloudsurfer 2 do that. They're a kind of happy counterpoint to some of the bigger max stack dailies that almost kind of nullify that road feeling. I describe them as a lighter, more direct alternative to the Cloudmonster or Cloudeclipse. There's a really nice compactness here to the shoe, a bit of old school precision to the platform that feels nicely stable and reliable, but not over sort of bulky or hulking. I don't get big bouncy springy energy, rather I get a kind of responsiveness that works off the rock ring. There's still good energy though, but this is one of those shoes I think that needs you to do a bit of the work. I don't mind that at all, though. I don't always want big springy shoes firing me off in each step. And I think what you lack in all-out kind of bounce or that propulsive feel you get back from the smooth transitions. Now, some of On's blurb claims that this is a super soft shoe. I didn't quite get that, but maybe that's because I came from marshmallowy kind of shoes like the Neo Zen that I was testing from Mizuno recently, and the On feel considerably firmer by comparison to those softer shoes. On the miles where I pushed the pace, though, they coped well. They're certainly capable of moving at marathon pace. I'd probably reach for something with a more kind of pronounced rebound for anything faster. But these shoes can cope with miles where you are raising the pace.
So I greatly enjoyed running in the Cloudsurfer 2023 or Cloudsurfer 7, whatever we want to call this predecessor shoe here. I found it a really soft and comfortable shoe with that rocker, and I have greatly enjoyed running in the Cloudsurfer 2 as well. It's got a really nice, easy, natural ride to it. Foam has been increased in firmness a little bit compared to the Cloudsurfer, which was, the softest shoe I think On's ever made, but it is still a soft shoe. I've run in both shoes at the same time, and I don't find this distinctly firm or anything like that, but you do get a little bit more resiliency in the foam. And I think that's important on long runs, when sometimes the previous Cloudsurfer model would start to flatten out a little bit for me. It might have also impacted on durability. I think that little bit of extra resiliency you have with the new model does help with the feeling on long runs. I've ticked through several easy long runs in the shoe, and I have enjoyed its feel throughout. And like I say, the rocker is just very natural. It reminds me a fair bit actually of the Hoka Mach 6 and Mach line in general, which just have very easy rides to get along with. I just get in sync with them and can roll with it, and I kind of forget about the shoe. It's just providing that nice smooth feeling with this CloudTec Phase midsole. So I've run about 60k in the shoe so far, and most of that has been at an easy pace. I'd say when I have pushed to faster paces, I have found the shoe wanting a little bit. Like, it's not that it's a heavy shoe at all or anything like that, but it doesn't really give you a lot of response. Like, this Helium foam in the midsole is kind of fine. It's a shoe that I think relies a lot on the geometry. I think the Helium foam here doesn't give you a lot of response or anything, but the rocker's so good that when you're in sync with it, it works really well, and it feels like a really nice, effortless shoe to run in. But when I started to push to faster paces, I kind of flattened out that rocker a little bit, I think. So I wasn't really getting that roll through, and I was just relying on the response of the foam, and there isn't that much of that. So while you can pick up the pace in the Cloudsurfer 2, because it is a pretty lightweight shoe, I think sustaining fast paces doesn't feel as good in the shoe as it does in other daily trainers around this kind of area. Things like the Mach 6 actually, or even something actually like the Asics Nova Blast 5, I found I get a bit more push off the toes with that shoe, even though it looks a bit bigger and bulkier, and it's not like it's a very responsive foam, but I do find this can be a little bit flat at those faster paces. It really shines for me much more at easy paces, when I guess I'm putting a little bit less impact into the rocker, and so getting the full smooth effect of that CloudTec Phase. So maybe that's something that you might have to look out for if you're a heavier runner. Maybe just kind of flatten out that rocker a little bit and it wouldn't work so well. But I do really enjoy the shoe at easy paces. It's one of my favourite shoes actually, just to pick up, go out, roll through some miles and come back, with the added bonus that it is a very good looking shoe as well, which does give it an extra string to its bow as a shoe you'll wear casually. Obviously, if you get the ivory shoe and you run in the UK winter, you're going to end up with a horrible black spot at the front, and it's going to very much lessen its appeal as a general use shoe. But overall, it is a good looking shoe. I do think that's important. I think it's actually a better running shoe than some other shoes that are very focused on aesthetics, things like the Nike Pegasus Premium. So yeah, it was an enjoyable run test for sure. It's a shoe that I would slot into my rotation as an easy day shoe. I think the problem it's probably going to have is the level of competition in this area with daily trainers that come in a bit cheaper and offer a bit more versatility. But actually, just running in the Cloudsurfer 2 feels very nice. I like the little bit of extra resiliency you have here compared to the previous model of the Cloudsurfer, but maybe if you want all-out softness, that model maybe has a little bit more of it, but it is still a pretty soft shoe, this, certainly compared to other On options, and all round it's a very fun shoe to just go out there and tick miles off in.
Verdict then, and I really enjoyed my miles in the On Cloudsurfer 2. The geometry, the fit, the mid-cushion, the weight, the agility, all work well with the way that I run. I think this is a really easy shoe to log miles in across a really promising range of paces as well. It's definitely got versatility ticked, and that is something I hold high in a shoe. There's some snap to it when you move faster with a quick foot turnover, but it copes nicely at slow to middling pace too. Though I found it kind of happiest when I was at my kind of cruising, just slower than marathon pace. I was able to take it up the gears if it really needed to, and that's where I think the more compact shoe with that stiffer, snappier midsole worked really well. This is definitely a shoe I'd recommend as well to casual runners who want something that kind of cross from everyday wear to the odd 5k. It'll cope with lots of what you do in the gym and outside and all of that kind of stuff. But I also think it's a good all-rounder that can slot into most runners' rotation and cover a lot of your different runs and mileage. I also really like the styling, though the white just isn't going to stay white for long. But I love that this is a shoe that you can wear with jeans during the day and then kind of Superman into your running kit and happily plod your run commute home in them as well. They've got that kind of all-day wearability without looking like a running shoe.
A verdict on the On Cloudsurfer 2, it's a very enjoyable shoe to run in, and it's one that I think is a little bit of an improvement on the previous model. I think we might get a bit more durability out of this because of the improved outsole and the slightly more resilient foam in the midsole, and in general it's just a shoe that's better for longer efforts in particular, I think, because you have got a bit more firmness and the forefoot doesn't flatten out as much as I found with the Cloudsurfer sometimes on long runs. Still don't think it's a particularly versatile shoe, despite the fact it's pretty lightweight and in theory should be pretty good for picking up the pace. I think you can go out and run hard intervals quite well, but yeah, if you're going to try and sustain the pace for a while, I think that you just get a slightly flat feel from this foam. So one that I position in my own rotation as a nice fun cushion shoe with a natural ride for easy runs, daily training runs, with the added bonus that's a really good looking shoe. And I think if you are looking for one shoe to wear casually and then on the run as well, it's definitely an option that would be up there for me. I think if you can compare it to the best kind of daily trainers around this area, I think you can get better shoes though. I think the Adidas Adizero Evo SL is a really fantastic shoe that's slightly cheaper than the On Cloudsurfer 2 and getting a much faster ride with a more aggressive rocker, a much bouncier Lightstrike Pro midsole. It's not the most stable shoe. Probably the Cloudsurfer 2 is a little bit better for relaxed, easy runs, but the Evo SL is a lot more versatile. There's other nice lightweight all-rounders that are a bit cheaper as well, like the Hoka Max 6, New Balance Rebel V4. I think they give you a similar level of cushioning. They're comfortable for easy runs, but they are more responsive and more fun to run fast in. And I think they're probably shoes that I'd pick ahead of the Cloudsurfer myself. Then if you're looking at the more cushioned end of daily trainers, there's lots of great models here, including the Asics Nova Blast 5, the Hoka Clifton 10, just really solid shoes with lots of cushioning, dependable rides, probably going to give you a little bit of an edge in durability, maybe not quite as smooth as the On Cloudsurfer 2 for those easy runs, but I do think you maybe get a bit more support, and with the Nova Blast 5 in particular, maybe a bit more off the toes when it comes to those faster runs. So there's lots of really good shoes out there. I think the Cloudsurfer 2 stands up very well against them. In terms of just pure enjoyment for easy runs, I think it's one of the shoes I've enjoyed the most in testing for the past few months. But I think you are losing out a little bit on versatility, and it's not the most affordable shoe, even though it's reasonably good value for On in particular, and it is a great looking shoe. So yeah, there's lots of factors in its favour that might make it work for you really well. I'd certainly enjoyed running in it, but I'd probably have a few shoes ahead of the Cloudsurfer 2 still.
So there you have it. That's been our review of the On Cloudsurfer 2. Hope you found it useful. We'd appreciate a subscribe if you're not already, and ring that bell to be notified when other videos land on the channel. If you're interested in daily trainers, I'm going to pop a video up on the channel that you should go and watch now. Otherwise, thank you very much for stopping by, and until next time, happy running, people.